Is it time?
1 minute.
All right.
You're also the official timekeeper.
My grandmother is.
It is time. I hereby call this September 10th, 2012 meeting of the Frankfort City Board of Commissioners to order. Clerk, please call roll.
Mr. Wilder.
Here.
Mr. Henry.
Here.
Mr. Turner.
Here.
Mr. May.
Here.
Mayor Graham.
Thank you. First order on the agenda is citizen comments. As you know, we just ask folks to identify themselves and to limit their comments to under 5 minutes. And anybody's welcome to speak on any topic they'd like. Any takers? Okay. Next item of business is discussion of tentative agenda. We've already seen a draft agenda for the month. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
I don't.
Great. Turn it over to the city manager for staff reports.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. It's been a busy couple of weeks for me, so I didn't realize how many meetings the city manager actually attends, and I've been to several, and some you'll get some reports on tonight. One I did want to report on is League of Cities had a meeting of second-class cities in Elizabethtown, and we discussed items of mutual interest to cities of the second class, first being pension reform. Of course, that's a problem for all the cities and those of us that participate in the Kentucky retirement systems. They want to discuss some legislative agendas and things that they want the cities to support in the ongoing pension reform. So that was one of the things. Another thing of particular interest to second-class cities was options for raising revenue. By quirk of the statute, second-class cities are such that they have just certain ways that they can raise revenue. Cities that are larger than us but a smaller class, like E-Town, Georgetown, places like that, apparently have different avenues for raising revenue than we do. So those are the types of things that the second-class cities collectively want to advance towards the legislative session. So that was pretty interesting, and you'll be getting some more information on that as time goes on. And now, as far as staff reports, we have several that I'm aware of. Mr. Donahue, are you going to wait until we? Because you have an agenda item. All right. Chief Passage. Thank you. Mr. Dawson.
Yes, sir. Do I need to come to this?
Yes.
Please do.
Okay.
Just for the audience's understanding, we ask everyone who speaks to come to the podium because we record these meetings and broadcast them online. And so we ask folks to come up to the podium to speak so that we can capture them on the microphone.
Now, thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to remind everyone that we, with the tax changes that we have going effective January 1st, 2013, we placed a packet of that information in everybody's returns they received for the third and fourth quarter. If you received an occupational tax withholding return, or if you receive a net profits tax return, you'll get those effective rates that go into effective January 1st, 2013. As you know, the occupational tax will go to from 1.75 to 1.95%. And we've done some things also to reduce the filing requirements or simplify the filing requirements for itinerant contractors. So that information will be in the packet in with everybody's return. So just wanted you to be aware of that. And I sent you a copy of that sheet today that went in with the packages. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarty from Parks. This is a busy season for Parks.
Busy season for Parks. Everything's going pretty good though. Commissioner Wilder asked us to, there was a report of mosquitoes at Cold Spring, and we have been looking, and I got in touch with Kendra Palmer, the Environmental Services for the Franklin County Health Department, and we haven't been able to find any large batch of mosquitoes. But, you know, I talked with her, and the good news was, this was last week, that there has been no case of West Nile in Franklin County as of last week. So that's good. You know, everybody gets concerned. You see a lot in the paper about the West Nile virus. Sure. But I would like to say, if any citizens do find mosquitoes in large areas in our parks, give us a call, and we'll take necessary steps to take care of it and everything.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jim.
And I'll give one plug. If you're not doing anything Sunday, come down to the South Frankfort Neighborhood Association and Community Gardens are going together and have a festival. So come down and try to spend some money and enjoy those two great organizations.
Thank you much.
And that's it. Anybody has any questions?
I have one, Mr. McCarty. There was a report this weekend of canoes drag racing on the river.
Yes, we heard that also. We heard that the county only had one representative, even the city won by default. So we'll probably hear something from the county, I'm sure.
I think anybody who was there can agree that the city team was paddling circles around the competition.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. That's all I have.
Thank you.
It's
Mr. Peterson from Sewers.
It's totally true.
Okay, Major Deaton, Major Abrams from Police Department. Any reports?
We have two special events that are going to be in the near future. On September 18th, we're starting our 14th session of our Citizen Police Academy class. We have some distinguished graduates here. That will run for approximately 10 weeks. And on September 29th, at the Franklin County Health Department, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we're going to hold our 13th session of our medication disposal day. Members of the community may bring unwanted, expired, or unused medications, and we're partnered with the Drug Enforcement Administration and the Health Department, and they may turn those in and have them disposed of in a manner which is approved by the EPA and the Division of Waste Management.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Hackbar.
Last week I went down to St. Clair parking garage and took a tour of the project down there. The city sold the garage, 6-7 months ago, and it's amazing the progress. I went through all the floors and inside the office space, and according to the owner, it looks like they're on target to have it open, but they've made a lot of progress. They've stopped 75% of the leaks, so that is a lot of progress because since the building was opened, it's been kind of leaking in that lower area. So at this point, it looks like they're on target for opening. So I just want to report that positive news.
That is good news. Thank you.
Also, we have our scope for demoing the East Frankfort pool complete, and we'll be advertising that construction project next week in the newspaper. Take bids on that project.
Great.
Okay?
Great.
Mr. Pacheco, IT.
No, sir.
Mr. Engel.
No, sir.
Did I miss anybody? Rob Moore, City Attorney. How could I forget?
I was contacted by the Heritage Council concerning the subordination agreement that the city signed, whereby we subordinated our mortgage on the old Paul Sawyer building to the easement that Kentucky State University was required to grant in order to obtain the $1 million grant, make repairs and upgrades to the old building. In any event, they wanted to make 2 minor tweaks to the first page of the agreement after it had been signed by the mayor. One is changing the date of the agreement from August to September, and another is indicating that the purpose of the easement, rather than being through perpetuity, is now just 50 years long. That won't affect our mortgage in any way, shape, or form, so I just wanted to let you all know that they're substituting a new first page.
Thank you. Thank you.
It will not affect the grant, so they'll get to work, I would think, and continue on.
Good news.
Mayor Pro Tem, before we move on, would this be an appropriate time to ask about the 12:30 meeting
Good a time as any, I reckon. Do we
for
have,
the 17th?
do you anticipate any need to?
I don't know of any topics right now that we need to discuss or that need to go on a special meeting. Can you think of anything?
Unless anything changes over the course of our discussion today, I think we can consider that meeting unnecessary.
Very well. Well, then that concludes staff reports.
Thank you. Before we move on to old business, I just want to recognize what appears to be an entire Boy Scout troop here today. We really appreciate your all's interest and presence here, and if you all have any questions about anything you see or hear today, please feel free to talk to us after the meeting. We'll be happy to try and answer your questions. First item under old business is a discussion of sidewalk policy. I know we have a representative from Walk Bike here, and I believe there's Jeff is just behind Fred. I guess we'll kick this over to Jeff to get started.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you much.
Well, last week we had a traffic committee meeting, and under the traffic committee meeting we discussed several items which included pedestrian and vehicular issues, so we kind of lumped it all up under that one meeting. As far as the sidewalk policy goes, we're recommending, Public Works that is recommending keeping our current policy in place, and for new projects specifically, when it's budget year, when it's time for the budget process, invite the public in, Walk Bike Frankfort, and it's been 2007 since we've had kind of a top 10 projects list. And I think that was done by Walk Bike Frankfort years ago, and some of those projects have been completed. Some of the priorities may have changed since that time, but we're recommending that for new projects, I think they're important as well as doing maintenance. I think they're both equally important, but rather than kind of listening to projects during the year, have one specific time during the year where we can kind of rank all the priorities and pick which project, and then the board picks which projects they would like to fund. And we can either use general fund dollars or municipal aid dollars to fund those projects. But that would maybe kind of let there be some time to prepare a project list, kind of what's the scope of each project, and kind of what dollar figure we're talking about, and if there's any right-of-way acquisition that needs to go on before we fund the project. So that is my recommendation as a report. City manager has the final say in our current policy, so we review our project list from year to year with the city manager, and I guess that's how our current policy is written, and we are just maintaining our existing sidewalks as our first priority.
Thank you. I do have an interest, and I do agree that it's important to find a way moving forward to lay new sidewalk as opposed to simply maintaining what we've got. As we saw in Shinkle Lane, we do have some areas in town that are purely traffic-centered roads that still function as pedestrian thoroughfares. And so we've got kids walking to school, we've got mothers pushing strollers, et cetera, either on the shoulder or actually out with traffic itself. I guess I also don't mind saying that my real interest as far as the policy is concerned is very similar to what you're describing, where we do work with community groups and do formally get together essentially a priority list for new sidewalks. And then as funds are available, and in essence at the whim of future commissions, because we can't commit any future commissions to any future expenditures. But if we go ahead and get a priority list in place with community input, then I think that would satisfy me going forward. I think that would lead to getting some of these projects done. Would we mind hearing from, I see Brent Swager's here, and we've talked a lot about getting input from community groups like Walk Bike, et cetera, but we haven't actually heard from Walk Bike. So it would be an objection to hearing from Walk Bike President.
And I've got some other things to report on when Walk Bike's presentation is over as well.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks for having me here and asking to hear from us. I am speaking on behalf of Walk Bike Frankfort tonight, and we strongly support the spending of the municipal aid funds, the road funds, on the sidewalk improvement projects. We think it's been great over the last few years what Public Works has done to try to repair and improve the projects, and this year we're venturing into the construction of new sidewalks, and that's really important for the community, obviously for safety and health reasons, and overall it comes down to the quality of life, and I think it's what a lot of people want. So I think it's a good thing. I'd love to actually see more funds being spent on sidewalk improvements and the addition of new sidewalk. Now, with that, there's a ton of needs out there. We did the plan back in 2007, and we identified a lot of locations. There are a lot of locations that are not on the master plan as well. And one of the things that I guess I have concern about, that just want to raise it tonight since we're talking about it, is that there'll be a lot of people, if you say there's money out there to build sidewalks, there'll be concern that a lot of people want to build a sidewalk in front of their house. And that's understandable. As a city commission, it's your responsibility to figure out what is the, or maybe it comes down to city commission with staff, to what projects should go first, second, third, etc. So really we'd like to see prioritization on the projects based on some things such as providing good connectivity, connectivity between neighborhoods, shopping centers, schools, parks, and that type of thing. And then also based on conflicts with traffic. Shinkle Lane is a great example where there is a lot of vehicular traffic and there's a lot of pedestrians, and they don't mesh too well in that situation. There's lots of other examples like that throughout the city. So I'll throw it out there that, it'd be nice to do something like this before the budget process starts, to have an idea of what those priorities should be. And Walk Bike Frankfort would be happy to help lead that effort, similar to what we did with developing the master plan, making a community or a public-based effort to get ideas and then to try to filter through some of those ideas to pick out what some of the best projects are, or the top needed projects are across all the city. So just once again support the idea of spending money on sidewalks, and but coming up with the best ones first.
Questions? Any comments?
I think it's a good idea, and good to spend it on new sidewalk that's needed, I think, in this community. And And I think when we do decide how to prioritize those sidewalks or new construction sidewalks, I think Walk Bike Frankfort and our Public Works Department will have to work together to determine what is that priority list and how it goes, and then that whatever commission or whatever board at that point can have the final say.
Sure.
But I know from my experience that I would certainly welcome that input.
Did anybody attend the charrette process that Walk Bike held to put together the biking and walking trail priority list? It was really well. How many folks participated in that?
We did 3 different sessions, and I think probably between 30 and 50 at each one. So it was well attended, well participated.
It was a very constructive process, and it really did a good job of soliciting input from everybody who showed up and really kind of boiling down those suggestions to the obvious, to really kind of the obvious priorities. And that's when laying, bicycling and walking trails in town, we've been working off of that list quite a lot. So that's really a service that Walk Bike has done us thus far. And so personally, I really appreciate your willingness to take that on again in regards to sidewalks.
Sure. Thanks.
I do agree that it would be a good idea to go ahead and start working on this priority list before the budget process starts. So ideally, the next commission can head into the budget season with this, with this list of priorities as a starting point. So yeah, so then the obvious question is what happens now? What happens next and when? Could we just green light staff and Walk Bike to work together to start figuring out how to seek public input? I assume that Public Works wouldn't want to just turn this over to Walk Bike outright, but would want a degree of
Actually, before you answer that, Jeff,
oversight.
The one thing I do want to mention is when we developed the master plan, we did work hand in hand with the city staff. That was not just us. We worked with Parks, Public Works, the police, and planning.
Of course.
Sorry, Jeff.
And I think, one thing to kind of keep in mind as far as the priority list,
Sure.
I think we also have to kind of keep in mind of what our upcoming projects are.
Sure.
Like as projects are started on certain roads, there might be opportunities where we're going to have to rebuild the road anyway. So I guess that's going to have to be factored into this priority list of what's currently under construction or planned under construction over the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And that might shift the priorities to where you're going to get some free sidewalks because it's going to be reconstructed anyway. So I think with staff and Walk Bike working together, I think that list, we might be able to speed that construction list up.
Right, and I guess, make sure we get a list from the sewer department as well, what their projects are.
Correct.
What roads they're going to be doing.
So we talked about one today that just, it'd been nice to know, and I think there's still time to implement a project, but with their workload, there may be a lot of opportunities.
Exactly.
To really speed up the program.
Exactly.
Could we get an also comparison to see where we are from the 2007 list to see those projects that are completed, so we can see kind of what we've already done and how those could tie in with future needs versus what may have changed and what those projects are going to be?
Sure. We can get you an updated list of where we are today in that list.
Great. Well, without objection, we'll turn that over to you guys.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
Do we want to continue on the traffic committee report?
Yeah,
I don't see why not. Yeah.
Second item we discussed was the proposal from Walk Bike to consider bike lanes on Louisville Hill. And I guess we discussed both the pros and the cons of a bike lane. It had to be on both sides, going up and coming down, and some concerns we had for safety. There's 2 lanes going up the hill, and a lot of times emergency vehicles, there's a car that's stalled in the roadway in a blind section of the curb, and having those 2 lanes up is nice from a safety standpoint, so they can go and block traffic. And so kind of what we discussed, both the pros and cons, and the committee kind of decided that that's kind of beyond our scope as a committee, and I guess to move forward on a proposal like that, we would like to get some public input and also input from the Transportation Cabinet, since it's their roadway to begin with, and then kind of look at it at that point, and if there's justification to move forward on that, apply for a permit, because I believe the sewer work is going to reconstruct that road essentially with the new storm line going in. So there'll be some opportunity to look at some striping applications. Third thing we talked about was traffic calming policy. Tom Bradley went to Lexington and met with Lexington officials and went over their current policy and kind of discussed what works and what doesn't work so well while we're drafting our policy. So that was very valuable information from their staff, because they've had theirs in place for about 10 years. And so I think that'll be very valuable, listening to what 10 years of experience with their policy will help ours become a better policy here. It was not going to look just like Lexington's, but that was a very valuable meeting in drafting our policy. The fourth item, the Transportation Center at UK visited Frankfort last week, and they would like to enter into an agreement with the city of Frankfort, and they would go through all our traffic accident records and identify where our trouble spots are around town, and they are offering kind of a fresh set of eyes to come in and ride our streets, and low-cost options to prevent traffic accidents. For example, at intersections, we noticed there were some stop signs across the intersection where say a T intersection occurred.
Bless
and
you.
Drivers at night might pull up, and you're used to coming
to the stop sign.
Well, if it's across the intersection, you're almost dragging them out into the road to get hit. So there's some things, not to say that's here, but just some things that a fresh set of eyes would notice, and it's free. And whatever we can look at some of the high crash areas and enter an agreement with this organization, I think would be definitely a positive. And so we might be able to put reflectors on trees, for example, where you have a narrow road at night, and that might be the difference between someone having an accident or not. So there's a lot of good ideas, and having someone from outside of this community come in, they'll notice a lot of things that maybe we take for granted. So we're going to put that on the agenda as well, to enter into an agreement with this.
That's great.
If I may, there's just with number 2 with the Louisville Hill, the bike lane. Just one thought, if it does seem positive to change the road, one thing we might also want to look at is signage for semi-trucks, considering that semi-trucks going out of town have the path to go up Louisville Hill, 127, or going out toward the east-west connector through town. And that route might want to get looked at as well with semi-trucks, with proper signage. Just a thought.
One thing I heard, I never heard this before, but when truck drivers go and do a search for how to get directions to, I can't remember what road, I believe it was Taylor. That search comes up to where it brings them downtown rather than, is it out in the industrial park?
They go to Taylor Boulevard for an industrial drop-off, and it sends them to Taylor Avenue down in town. So they're trying to figure out a way to get downtown. If they're coming from the Louisville side, then they come down 60,
right,
and they get stuck going down Louisville Hill, which is a big problem now.
Right.
So I think that's one thing, is how do we correct that? And I don't know if there's a renaming of the street is the option, but signage, I know when you come down the road, there's a sign above and once you get to that point, it's hard to turn around. So we want to do some advanced signing in front of that, so they have the option of turning around or stopping. So we can definitely take a look at that.
Yeah, just a thought. Thank you.
I've got 2 separate questions, Jeff. I was going to bring this up under old business, but since they relate. relate to traffic business. I'm just wondering what we got the check from our friends in state government to do a traffic study downtown that, per earlier discussions, was a necessary precursor to establishing feasibility of reverting some of the one-way streets back to two-way streets. Now they got that money, I'm just curious to know how that process is moving and what the next stop on the time frame is.
I was invited to a meeting at the Transportation Cabinet in Frankfort several weeks ago, prior to the presentation for the last meeting. And the Cabinet acknowledged they have the money in hand to go forward with the project, and they were deciding in-house whether they were going to hire a consultant or do the study in-house. And once they made that decision, they'll contact the city and kind of get a stakeholders group together and develop a scope. So I guess at this point we're waiting to hear from the Cabinet on which direction they've decided to go.
Okay.
And then they'll contact the city to invite stakeholders to give their input of what they would like to see the scope of the work to be. You know, it's not only traffic, but it's also a lot of parking issues. I would assume would be involved with this study.
Sure. Well, just keep us posted. Thank you.
And I hear something, I'll forward it.
And I'd also requested in a previous work session just some numbers on the trolley in regards to ridership, how much funding we get per rider and total expenses. If that isn't ready today, I mean, I'd be happy to just get that in writing later.
We'll follow up with that.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Any other old business? I'm happy to hear from Brent again. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make a couple comments on the Louisville Road project. You know, last month when we came here, or since last month when I came here to talk to you about that, afterwards I convened a meeting and included the statewide bike ped coordinator as well as 2 other people involved in Walk Bike Frankfort to really get into the nuts and bolts of what is it we want to propose based on the width of road that's on the width of the road. The original, our original proposal was to put a bike lane both up and down on Louisville Road, but one of the concerns that we were aware of and we wanted to come to consensus on was how do you deal with the turning lane coming onto Taylor Avenue? Because with what was being proposed initially last month was that you would have to remove that turning lane. So we met and we did come up with something that we think will work really well, and it's something that's been done in other places. When you have a steep hill like Louisville Road, it's possible to actually do a bicycle lane on one side of the road and then have what's called a shared roadway or shared lane marked with something called a sharrow. And if you just think of a couple arrows or chevrons and a bicycle symbol within the lane. So what we're proposing is on the downhill side where bikes can go quite fast, not quite as fast as a car, but can keep pretty good speed going down the hill, that they could share a wider lane. This would be wider than a normal travel lane. There would be a separation of traffic by about 4 feet with, we'll say, two sets of double lines. And then on the uphill side, it would be a single lane with a bicycle lane. By kicking out the travel lane with the bicycle lane away from the edge, that improves the sight distance. That was one of the things that was brought up earlier by Mr. Hackbart. So the sight distance, and if you ever travel up in that right-hand lane, the sight distance is bad when you travel up there. So just getting out an additional 4 feet away from that curb really helps you be able to see around those corners. So we think that our newest proposal, and I sent a drawing to the traffic committee for their consideration. I don't know if it got there before or after you all met, but
we did get a chance to see it.
Okay, so anyhow, it's a revision, but it accomplishes the same thing that we were proposing initially, and certainly taking it out to the public for just to gauge public reaction. We don't see any issue with that, if that's the direction you want to take. but there is a limited time with the contract and with the sewer department.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess you all will just report back to us when you get input.
Yes.
Great. Any other old business? Okay. And we've got new business. I see Joy raring to go.
Well, first of all, I would like to, just in case Mr. Schumer leaves, I would like to publicly thank the Walk Bike Committee for being so proactive in realigning their priorities early on with the river development. And believe me, I give you all credit every time I do any speaking for that, because that was very significant to the river development plan, and I deeply appreciate that. I've been working on this project about the Kentucky Trail Towns for some time in conjunction with the work we're doing with the National Park Service and also with the state. And this was a letter that we received from Secretary Sparrow. Thank you for your interest in the Kentucky Trail Town program. In every region of Kentucky, significant natural resources are intertwined with quaint, picturesque communities rich with opportunity for tourism development. Your town can benefit from these vast resources by providing outdoor adventure seekers connection to land and water trails, as well as access to essential services and supplies. In addition to their enjoyment of outdoor adventure, trail users also want to shop, take in theatrical musical performances, purchase Kentucky-crafted souvenirs, stay overnight, and visit other attractions. By connecting these resources, your town can become a certified trail town. I've been attending these meetings for some time, and we are ready now. We've formed a task force. We've got about 24 people that have agreed. There was a pretty prescribed set of positions that needed to be in this task force, and I would like to, I also gave you a little sheet that looked like this, and that was just for your edification. It's got some criteria for this Trail Town designation, and I have a resolution that I have given to Ms. Newman, and it reads as follows: a resolution to create Kentucky Trail Town Task Force. Whereas the Frankfort-Franklin County Tourist and Convention Commission has taken the lead on riverfront development, and whereas the Tourist Commission has created the Riverfront Development Committee under its authority, and whereas both of the above-mentioned entities have worked and continue to work with the Governor's Office, National Park Service, the Secretary of Tourism, Arts and Heritage Cabinet, the Adventure Tourism, a division of the TAH Cabinet, the Kentucky River Authority, and the Kentucky River Alliance to implement riverfront development along the Kentucky River as it winds its way through Frankfort. Now therefore be it resolved that the execution of this resolution by the undersigned officials will authorize the Tourist Commission to oversee the supervision of the Trail Town Task Force in order to complete the application process and implementation for Frankfort to become a Kentucky Trail Town, in which will include both river and land trails. Be it further resolved that the Commission, in conjunction with the above-mentioned task force, report to the City Commission of Frankfort quarterly on the progress of the Frankfort Kentucky Trail Town. And downtown Frankfort, the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development, and our office, the directors of each of these organizations are serving as a core committee and executive committee, and we have the full support of those entities. So I don't know how you need to proceed with this, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, but whatever it is.
Would you like us to pass a resolution, or just simply?
Well, I would like for you to
sign a
pass
letter
the
of
resolution,
support?
but I don't know whether you can do it in this setting or whether you have to do it. I think you have to.
We can't do it in
Yeah,
this
right,
setting,
but
but is there any reason it can't wait a couple of weeks?
No,
Really?
there is not, no. Because I'm going on with all the processes. This just has to be in by the time we present the applications. No, there's no rush on it. So just whatever.
So you could just, without objection, I'd say you can just hand the resolution over.
Yes, I did give
The
Ms.
city
Newman.
clerk, or to
Yes.
the city manager?
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
We'll just add it to our voting agenda this month.
Well, right, I believe there's a task force attached to that, so we would,
So that to establish a task force?
Oh, you would like the names of the task force? I can give you that.
Oh, I don't believe we need to establish a city task force, do we?
No, no.
Okay.
What I'm asking you is to give us, the Tourist Commission and the Riverfront Development, the authority to just go ahead and do this on behalf of the city.
Okay.
I think what they're trying to do, Mr. Wilhoit, is to make sure that cities that are doing this with the support of their local governments.
Right.
So
That could be added to the agenda.
okay. And would you like for me to address the riverfront development while I'm here, or would you like for me to come back up later?
I don't have any objection to going ahead and, as long as we've got you up here.
Okay, in that case, you have a document that looks like this. And inside that document, you will find a one-page sheet that looks like this. The plan is here, which I'm sure by now you all know as well as I do. And within the back folder is the expanded plan for the expansion of Capitol View Park. But I wanted an opportunity to come share with you all some progress that we've made. And many of these have been done with the planning of the riverfront development, but certainly with the cooperation and the collaboration of many, many other parts of the city and the county. The Ward Oats Amphitheater, which I'm sure you've all been down there to see, and the Friday concerts are doing great, and Parks and Rec, they've just done a phenomenal job with planning those, and I've been meeting with some drama groups about the possibilities. We want to have drama on there by next season, and this will require a portable side and back stages that they were never intended to be permanent at any rate because of flooding possibility, even though it's remote, but we want whatever is up there to be able to wash in and not cause any damage. But I definitely we're enjoying that season this year. The Pontoon River History Tour has absolutely been phenomenal, and I had the privilege a few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, to take 3 people from the National Park Service and people from the River Keepers and the Kentucky River Authority on our entire pool. And then last Friday, I was able to take the regional tourism directors, my counterparts in the Bluegrass region, on the river tour. And every time I get somebody on there, they are absolutely just blown away with how beautiful it is, and the spots that are still along the river that look like they did 200 years ago, you really wouldn't even know you were within a city. And kudos to this community for having preserved that, and I can absolutely guarantee you, as long as I'm working with Riverfront, we will never damage that view, because that is what makes this river so incredibly special. And I'm deeply grateful to the Parks and Rec for what they've done with that. Also, I applaud the city for collaborating with Canoe Kentucky, and that has been extremely successful. They did it just simply to show support for riverfront development. But as it has turned out with the drought this year, it probably saved Canoe Kentucky this season, because they were able to do canoes and kayaks there when they wouldn't have been able to do them on the Elkhorn Creek. So it was a win for both sides. Then we have the walking tour. We have the completion of the walk bike Frankfort, the walk bike path from Riverview Park to Buffalo Trace. And again, this is a collaboration of City Parks and Rec, the Walk Bike Group, and one of the stretches was through the Tourist Commission, the riverfront development land there between Gaddytown and the tire store. And it is just so nice, and I've heard people really raving about using it. I would also like to report to you about the science lab in the old Federal Building. We've had delays on this, none of which, I can absolutely guarantee you, none of which have been the fault of Riverfront Development, nor the fault of Kentucky State University. We have had regulations and hoops to jump through, and no offense, but if you've ever dealt with the Corps of Engineers, you know that is not an easy process. But the boat is nearly completed. It will be completed by the end of September. They are working now on carpeting, finishing touches. And it will be dry docked through the winter because KSU does not want to put it into the water until we know there are no floods in the spring. As Mary and I were, Dr. Sias and I were talking, it would be better at least to have one season where we knew there wasn't any threat of a flood damaging it at all. Also, the Kentucky River Alliance, which includes the National Parks Service, is going to have their spring meeting there next June, and we hope to have enough done in the old federal building to have a very nice ribbon cutting, and I will want all of you there. This will be something very nice for Frankfort and for the region, and we really, really owe a debt of gratitude for Kentucky State University. First of all, for the city setting up a possibility for this happening. Secondly, for Dr. Sias seeing the possibility of what could happen and committing those funds. And I can tell you from many conversations with Dr. Sias, she sees this as an opportunity for marketing the university. We all realize that the more the university becomes Frankfort's university, the better it is for Frankfort and for the university. And we have about 60,000 school children come here every year. Not only will they be able to see the historic sites, they will also be able to go on this science lab barge with technology and science labs right on the watercraft and interpretive center in the old federal building. And one of the reasons that Dr. Sias wanted to have a very effective on-land portion to this was there will be a few times during the year when children would not be able to go on the water because of the water safety. And yet this is going to have the history of the river and how the Palisades were formed, and just a very, very nice experience. I predict, and I plan to still be alive in 10 years, I predict that within 10 years we will have as many or more children visiting that science exhibit as we have visiting the historical sites. And I think that very easily could happen. My hope as tourism director is that many of these children would find a way to stay overnight. They could do the historical sites one day, they could do the river sites another day. Then also the enhancements at the Capitol View Park and Parks and Rec have just gone out of their way to help us. We've had so much more traffic on the river with everything that's happening with the river. And consequently, we've needed beach space, which they've helped us clear. We've needed picnic tables and grills and porta potties. And I'm surprised that Mr. McCarty and Mr. Parrish do not run every time they see me coming, because every time they see me coming, they know I'm going to be asking for something. But this is incredible, and we've had people down at that beach there at Capitol View Park. Rodney Simpson goes past there twice a day, 7 days a week, just to check out the numbers, and it's really incredible. The next is the Kentucky River Authority, and we will be open from here to the Ohio River in 2013. And they have almost completed the work at 4. And if any of you know Jerry Graves or you see him, please tell him thank you. He has landed running in that position, and he is absolutely the best thing that ever happened to the River Authority and the locks and dams. And as I traveled from Carrollton to Lock 8 with the National Parks people and the Riverkeeper and a large group of us, the treasure that this river is, and those locks that have been there for over 200 years. And you look at them, and I know that I know I'm an overly optimistic person, and I know this is this is hyperbole, but I couldn't help but think that you look at the pyramids and you think, how did they do this without any modern construction or equipment? You look at these locks and you think the same thing. And the structure of these locks is still sturdy. The repairs that have to be done are on the doors, the gates. But the structure of these things is unbelievable. And they did these in the 1800s where I don't know how they did them. But I'm sure that Dr. Size is going to have something about that in her on land. At any rate, the River Authority, and as Commissioner Wilder knows because he sits on Riverfront Development, we never, never, ever miss another River Authority meeting, do we? We have learned our lesson. We are there and in front of them at every point. But we are very, very excited. And I have spotted 2 of the Lockmaster houses between 1 and 8 that would be perfect places for a B&B. And somebody's laughing, but it might happen some.
It's a good laugh.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. One of the things we were doing with the National Park Service was developing portages around the locks by which currently you cannot get to by water. You have to get to them by land. So now that doesn't help a motorboat, but it certainly helps a canoe or a kayaker, and they're pretty outdoorsy people anyway. So if we can create a safe portage around those locks, then they can go from lock to lock to lock. And I must tell you that one of my goals, though, is to get some of the locks, at least to Shakertown, that the concrete would be taken out of the barrier that has closed those gates. Those gates are still salvageable. It costs nearly as much to concrete them in as it does to repair the gate. The concrete is a 20-year fix. The gate is a 50 to 60-year fix. So just doing the financial evaluation, it is more economical to do the real fix, which is what they're doing on 1 through 4. So at any rate, I do have strong support from Governor Beshear and Mrs. Beshear and Secretary Sparrow, and I'm not planning on stopping until my goal is to turn the entire lock system into a linear state park. My real goal is for it to eventually turn into a national park, but I probably may not see that, so you all will have to take that one on. Also, I already explained the Kentucky River Trail Town and the lumber yard. You may have noted some activity on there. Mr. McGrath, Mr. Frank McGrath, owns that property still, and after some real salesmanship on my part, he agreed that it would be best if the properties were leveled. And in conjunction and cooperation with the Heritage Council and the Historic Preservation, we were able to document the historic pieces that were on the property, and it has now been leveled. And I would like to tell you that within weeks of those buildings being demolished, while they were still being demolished, but while you could see what was there, I was contacted by 3 developers. Now, in the whole time we've been working on this, I had not been able to get a nibble from a developer. And we had finally decided that since the economy was the way it was, our best bet was to get the land cleared so that at least it looked good until we could go to the next step. But immediately when people could see what we could see in our heads, in reality they could see it. 3 developers. One probably isn't really plausible. 2 of them are very plausible. One of them has called me weekly ever since I met with them about probably 6 or 8 weeks ago with more information. And so I don't know that this is going to happen really soon, but it's going to happen someday. And folks, I'm here to tell you that's the part of this plan that will create tax revenue. That's the mixed-use development, and that's what will help us create tax revenue. And then the last piece is the tourism land, which is the land on Wilkinson. And downtown Frankfort had been working with a developer about the possibility of some parks, a series of parks. And the land that they wanted to use wasn't going to work. And Ms. Skinner had mentioned to me that possibly did I know of anything, and immediately I thought of our tourism plan. I have met with that gentleman, and it's going to happen. And it will be a smaller children's park, a medium children's park, and a skateboard park on the land between Gaddytown and Big O Tires. And so what I would like to say to you is, not to be maudlin, but my husband, my dear husband, when he was diagnosed with cancer, said to me when I wanted to retire, I don't want you to retire, because if this does not turn out the way we want it to, you need that river to put your energies. And that was very wise counsel, because I do need that river, and I do need the city of Frankfort to put my energies, and I am very, very humbled and appreciative that I have somewhere to put my energies right now. And I'm excited about what we've done, and I want to tell you, if we can accomplish this while my husband was dying of cancer, can you only imagine what I can do in the next year with the help of everybody and many, many people in this room. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Joy. Please.
Question. Good report. What, the skateboard park, is that going to be on, is that going to be privately owned?
We have not worked out those details.
That's always been a problem for us, but I was thinking if it's private, I mean, that solves a lot of issues if it's...
Yeah, we haven't got to that. We're talking very up here. I can tell you what I hope is that it will become a city park. Now, of course, I haven't quite dropped that one on you yet, Jim.
I think he saw it coming.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. They've got so they read my mind. Commissioner May, I really don't feel. I don't feel competent to answer that question, because we just started these conversations, what, 3 or 4 weeks ago, so it's all happened pretty fast. But I can tell you I don't have any intentions of doing something that's going to bankrupt the city. So,
Thanks.
As I'm sure you don't either, and Rob won't let us, Mr. Moore won't let us.
Joy, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the leadership you've shown on this project. It's a worthwhile project. It undoubtedly will affect the quality of life in this community and improving it. And a lot of the thanks and credit goes to your organizing and your leadership and your vision. And so you said you needed Frankfort, you needed this river. Well, Frankfort needs you and this river needs you, and we appreciate all your hard work that you've done so far. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll also thank you, Joy, for your, it's been a pleasure to serve with you on this for the past couple of years. For the sake of the audience, to expand a little bit on a couple of these projects, in terms of, I say that we expect some significant economic impact from this business about opening the locks up to the Ohio River. Frankfort is unique in Kentucky, and we're the only city in Kentucky that actually has a river running through the heart of our town. And so as we open the river up to river travel, and that makes us, in lots of ways, the obvious place to stop, to get out downtown, to spend money, frankly, to catch a show, to get something to eat, maybe even spend the night, etc. So I really can't, I think, understate the economic value of getting that done. And Joy's right, Jerry Graves has been a tremendous asset to the Riverfront Development Committee. And then also this business at the end of Capitol Avenue at the old Frankfort Lumber Yard, if that can be established as mixed-use development with a significant residential aspect, that's one thing that there's a school of thought in economic development, and this is one of the things that the previous executive director of Seceda had a lot to say about. One of the best ways to increase the economy in a downtown area in particular is to just increase opportunities for residency. because as we get more people living in that area, and we know the apartments down there fill up pretty quickly, so as we make more of those opportunities available, then that creates, not only does that help small businesses downtown, but that also creates more of a demand for even more business across the board. So it's kind of a field of dreams thing. If you build it, they will come. But we provide the customers, that can only serve to help boost and bolster the small businesses we have in that area.
Two of the developers that have approached me about the lumberyard project have said, true, it is not a good time for condo sales. It is an excellent time for condo rentals.
Oh, yeah, you'll have a list.
And so we were thinking that we had to go the direction of a developer going that. We hadn't even thought of the idea of renting the condos. And so, that's a strong possibility. And certainly, Commissioner Wilder, what you're saying about the locks being open, I mean, I've talked to all the counties along from here, from 1 to 4, and we've already had calls from people on the Ohio River wanting to know when they're going to be open and when they can come back to Frankfort. There was a time when 40 to 60, as many as 70 boats would come on a weekend to Frankfort from the Ohio River. And that, particularly for the Capitol Plaza Hotel, that's a tremendous economic value because their biggest season is in the winter. Their downtime is the summer. Now, out on the interstate, it's exactly the opposite. But in the summer, when the boats would be coming, and those people would come, park their boats, and stay in the hotel. And so I agree that that has an economic impact too. But I'm not going to be satisfied to retire until that mixed-use development is, because that's from the beginning. I've told you all that's how I see us creating economic impact.
Thank you. I've got one other piece of old business, and this is, or new business, and this is kind of in relation to the Trailtown resolution. I have a copy here of a work-ready community resolution that Carmen Inman passed me from the Chamber of Commerce. The work-ready, I'm sure you all are aware of this, but just for everybody's understanding, the work-ready community task force is being spearheaded by the Chamber of Commerce, but it includes, it's a collaborative effort between the Chamber, private businesses, city government, county government, Kentucky State University, city schools, county schools, state government, and community groups, and Thornhill, I'm going to oversimplify this for the sake of explanation, but the idea is to, we're actually applying to be recognized as a work-ready community. That entails essentially us as a community establishing a better educated workforce. So we're talking about efforts in the schools to increase graduation rates, etc., but also more opportunities for technical training and for particular skill set training in different areas, so that we can be a more attractive place to do business. I mean, in a nutshell, when a business looks for a place to develop or to set up shop, they look at a number of different things. They look at the tax rates, obviously. They also look at quality of life in the area. They look at schools and hospitals, etc. But one of the biggest priorities for a lot of businesses is simply having a qualified workforce on hand if they do choose to move to a given area. And so the idea is, if as a community we can help provide that qualified workforce and train people for slightly better jobs, then that's kind of win-win, because we're helping our citizens get better jobs, but then we're also again, the field of dreams idea. If you build it, they will come. Will also hopefully help us with our economic development recruitment efforts. And so, and similar to the Trailtown resolution, they would just like letters of support from the different agencies involved. There's no commitment per se, but it's just so they can be assured that there actually is support from the community in this regard. So without objection, I'll share this with the city clerk, and folks can take a look at it, and we can get it on the agenda for next month.
Great.
Thank you. Any other new business? All right. Well, next up, we have discussion items. If any department heads, aren't on the rest of the agenda and would like to go on with the rest of their lives, they're certainly welcome to. They're also welcome to stick around.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah.
If I might ask, is George Lehman still here?
Bless you.
He had an obligation.
Okay, all right then, so there's no reason to try to bump him up. Good to see you.
Okay. Next up is Wells Fargo, insurance options for commission to consider for city employees. Excuse me. Thirsty. I've been working in the sun all day.
Well, it's the time of the year that we start talking about what we're going to do next year, and the topic on health insurance, we've had several conversations and work sessions and meetings the past 6 months, actually, since we started working on the budget. And the fiscal year 13 budget was built with a 4.5% increase in the budget for health care, and we've been trending 8 to 12% a year. But we were way out of balance, and we kept trying to pull back, and so that's where the budget is, at 4.5% increase. The only way that can probably happen is if we continue to address the changes that we started in 2011. And so I guess the choices for us going forward are whether to continue that change or to find the funds necessary to not make any more changes. And so I'm going to turn this over to Wells Fargo, and they're going to talk about their efforts to market our plan for 2013. Going to talk about healthcare reform and how it affects us going forward. 2014 is a big year there, so we're just now getting to some of those things. They've got 3 options laid out for changes. One of those is pretty much a continuation of what we started last year, and at the other end of the continuum would be a do-nothing option, and then there's one sort of in the middle. If we don't do anything, I believe the budget will need to be amended by about $130,000, and we can talk about that in more detail with that part of the agenda, I guess. We need to restore the $100,000 for working spouses that was taken out, but we decided to keep our policy open to those spouses. And there's also a short report on wellness. We hope to, in October, have an agreement before you and get that program started with the 2013 plan year. And looks like the cost for the first year will be about $40,000, and it'll run about $45,000 in years thereafter. So with that,
so when you reference a possible need for $130,000 amendment, does that reflect the $100,000 for working spouses? And
no,
those are separate numbers.
That's basically to get back to about a 8 to 10% growth, which is what we typically have seen if we don't make any changes.
Okay.
So that 130 is to get the line item up where it's going to have to be in all likelihood if we don't do anything. Then the 100,000 for the working spouses and about 40,000 for the wellness program. But with that, I'll turn it over to our brokers, Wells Fargo Insurance Services, Norma and Daryl. You all know them, they've been here before.
Hello.
Hi.
Of course, I always have something to pass out. Not very big this time.
Thank you.
Just one more. Got one from Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Last month, when we were here, we discussed that we were marketing your account at this point in time on the medical benefits. We are still in that process right now. We're trying to wrap everything up. but based on what we're seeing for some of the numbers and what's coming back to us, probably our option to stay with the TPA that you're currently with is probably going to be the most cost advantage option. But we are, as we always say, pitting the carriers against each other to try to get the best option out there for you all as far as financially. As we said before, the fully insured option, they just won't even quote it on the fully insured. So the self-funded option that you have right now, leaving your plan self-funded, is probably the best bet for you. It gives you more control to be able to tweak your plans the way you want to, and also be able to control your claims a little bit. So we've met and we've talked a little bit, and one of the recommendations I think that you all need to look at, in July of 2011 we made changes to the plan, and it had been several years since there had been any changes. We went from one plan to 3 different plans. I think that you should, because of the changes that we made, the plans that you're offering right now are pretty rich, but they're a diverse mix of plans. I would recommend that you keep the plans as they are right now currently, and wait until 2014, next year, and look at making some changes to the plans because of healthcare reform. We don't know what we're going to have to do for healthcare reform, and based on that, I think that, you know, if we made changes this year and then turn around next year, made some major changes, it might be more confusing for everyone. And the plans are good plans as they are right now. They're very, very good plans. And like I said, they're diverse for your employees. So with the unknowns with healthcare reform and, you know, the mandates that are going to be out there, I think it will be better and more advantageous that we look at not plan design changes, but with the 3 proposals that I have in the handout here. We've given you 3 options. We talked about that. As Randy said, one option is to continue the course that we took back in 2011 when we decided that we were going to try to get the employee contribution in the family and the employee spouse and the employee child breakdown tier to get them more in line with other employers. Since your cost share had not been really adjusted for a while. So the first option that is in this packet here is one that kind of stays on the same course as we did for July of 2011. If you look at the bottom of this spreadsheet, we have 3 options here. Option 1 is the one that kind of stays at the same percentage level of increases on these plans. If you look down with Plan 1, that is the health savings account. That is with the high deductible health plan. That's a plan where we're just barely tweaking that a little bit as far as any cost increases. The middle plan has another small increase, and Plan 3 has an additional increase, a small increase. They're not large increases, but this is the most aggressive increases that we're recommending. That's if you kind of want to stay at this percentage of increases like we did for 2011. If you look at option 2, that increase on the employee contribution side is about half of option 1. So if you don't want to be as aggressive because of the economy, you can look at this option 2. That might be more in line with what you want to do this year as far as how you want to move forward. And then option 3 is keeping everything as is and not making any changes at all to the employee contribution this year. The one thing that I wanted you guys to look at is behind option 3 is a comparison to the Commonwealth. I put your plan 2 and Plan 3 side by side with the Optimum Commonwealth plan. That's a plan that roughly about 64% of the state employees have picked. And I highlighted the differences because the Commonwealth plan is grandfathered, so they don't cover preventative at 100%, where we moved you off of the grandfather status. We wanted to include preventative. We want people to go and have their annual physicals. So there's the differences in the yellow are the differences with that plan as opposed to your two plans. They don't have a plan that exactly matches your plan, but their plan is kind of in the middle. You know, your buy-up plan is a little bit richer in some areas than the optimum plan, the Commonwealth plan. And then your plan 2 is a little bit less rich, so it's right in the middle. But the interesting piece is these are the numbers, their employee contribution for 2012 at the bottom. They have non-smoker and smoker rates. They base their employee contribution on that, which you all do not. But you can look at the two comparisons of your Plan 2 and Plan 3 and what the Commonwealth charges for their plan, just to see in the premium differences.
I would note, though, on there that there's some pretty stark, particularly with the core plan and the optimum PPO. There's some differences in coverages there that I think are important.
Right.
I mean, you go from an 80% after deductible to an 85% after deductible. Your maximum out of pocket for a single is $1,350 versus $1,500. So there are some coverage differences that gives the state plan a little bit more enhanced coverage, which is that's why you would see a significant difference.
Right, in that one. But then in Plan 3, which is your buy-up plan, there is significant differences, and it is a rich plan. It's richer than the state plan. So, you know, we really didn't have anything to perfectly compare to it. But I wanted to kind of show you the differences and just to show you, you know, what their employee contribution is. Like I said, you know, we looked at the plan design. Your plan design's kind of running in line with what the state does, and I think the county does, and, you know, some of the other employers around here. So I don't think we need to tweak the plan design. But if you want to, those three options of making a small adjustment or going a little bit tougher or keeping it as is, you know, are the three options that I think you need to look at. And I guess that depends on what you all want to do budget-wise, you know, what you think because of the economy, what you want to pass back on to the employees. I think, you know, that's a determination. But I wanted to bring you three different scenarios. And then the other thing is the wellness piece, which we're looking at starting for next year. We hope to, with that piece, be able to tie that back into your medical plan and somehow tie discounting with premiums as far as participation in the wellness and to build that plan. I think that the committee has made the recommendation to go with the Humana Vitality Plan. They felt like it was a good fit for your organization. They made the determination that they want to move forward with that, and however that's passed or whatever you guys decide to do going forward, then at that point in time, then we'll develop a timeline and the structure, how you want to incorporate this within your medical insurance, your premiums, if they want to tie it to premiums, how they want to roll it out. But, you know, if you have a wellness program, it's great if you can get everybody to participate, but sometimes you have to offer them some encouragement sometime to do that. So I think it's a right move to have a wellness program. It's going to be tied to health care reform. You as an employer are going to get discounts because if you have wellness programs there's going to be incentives for companies to put that in there. That's why they put the preventative in there, to get people to start on that annual physical. So these are the comparisons. This is what, you know, I wanted to bring to your attention so you all could make your decision as what you want to do, how you want to move forward in the contribution. Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. Well, I guess it's more toward the Human Resource Department. Is wondering if there's any feedback you've gotten back so far from staff and what staff would like to see done.
I can assure you that staff would not support a rate increase, and they would not support a decrease in benefits. I can assure you.
Actually, board last night, they told me to say.
And, you know, from previous meetings, some employees say, okay, we could pay a little more, but really don't cut the benefits. Other employees say, we'll cut the benefits a little bit, but don't charge us anymore because we can't. So it's the classic danged if you do and danged if you don't. I guess I can paraphrase it that way. And it's not pretty. It's just choices that have to be made. But the one thing I do want to point out that I kind of forgot to mention is, we do need to decide what we're going to do. We've got open enrollment scheduled to start on October 8th, so that we can run parallel with state government, so that our families can look at both options, our families where one spouse works there and one here. So we need to know what we're going to do so that we can start preparing documents and scheduling meetings so that we can get out there and talk to our employees and tell them what's going on.
Well, I guess, it's no vote to be done tonight, but I'm in option number 3 for no changes, and then just making sure that we are moving forward with our wellness program and for the next year, seeing who gets put into office as president, we just move forward from that direction.
Obviously, there's lots of regulation, unless it's repealed immediately or something, there's still regulations being developed, and Wells has done a good job of keeping us informed. They've, they're giving us access to webinars and things and newsletters where they do talk about what employers need to do to stay in compliance. And it's an ever-changing landscape for sure.
Yes. And then sometimes it's retroactive on you,
Yes.
and you don't know it until you get the phone call, which, in my work field, my daily job, I deal with it.
Well, for what it's worth, I agree with Katie. I mean, we've already made so many changes this term anyway, and it costs us all so much to do that. And I know it costs employees a lot just in terms of their mental health, which does affect their physical health in some ways. But with so many unknowns coming down the pike, I just as soon keep our powder dry and cross those bridges when we come to them.
I could not support option, looks like option number 1. I could support option number 2. I can't understand why employee contributions are needed to go up. I mean, it is logical and it makes sense, and something that's happening in a number of workforces, whether public or private sector, particularly in the private sector. But I can live with option 3 as well. But if we do choose option 3, you had mentioned that we would need to do a budget amendment, possibly. I mean,
Just doing some quick numbers to get us back where it looks like we've been trending, which is what I expect we will do, without making changes. I think about $130,000 for this fiscal year.
And when would you need that budget
Well,
amendment?
really, we won't run out of money till after the first of the year, so I believe that there's been some discussion about maybe putting a budget amendment together for later in the year. And I'm not sure if October or November or December, but I think Mark and Steve have had some of those discussions, and if there's I think Steve wanted to kind of watch the trends on the revenues and expenditures, and instead of doing many of them, maybe let's kind of figure out what needs to be done. Let's do them all at one time.
Agreed. But that's where I stand on it. Option 2 is my primary one that I would prefer, but option 3 I could go with.
Second for me, 3.
That sounds like a...
We have our direction, and we'll start.
3 for 3, so.
Okay.
Here's your marching orders.
Should we throw up the goggles?
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's like crypto.
which segues very neatly into the last discussion item, because we've already gone through the next 2, which is the budget amendment process. I guess this is Steve's bailiwick.
Well, if I may, Mayor Pro Tem, part of the discussion was, and it was brought up because we had a first reading for sewer, and that was part of the reason Mr. Lehman from Bluegrass Ad was here. He was going to encourage us to continue with the second reading on the budget amendment.
Thank you all.
Despite some members' reluctance or wish to get all the budget amendments together in one, take care of all of them in one fell swoop. Insurance, this, and there was one other one that escapes my mind now. But the importance of this sewer, of having the second reading on this sewer budget amendment, allows us to have access to the grant funds for a winter project. And it's Home Street, I believe it's Home Street, isn't it, Mr. Peterson? Yes. And it allows us to get that area taken care of in kind of a down construction time. But it would have to be basically on the books in October, I believe, is that...
So it would have to be approved at the voting meeting this month?
That's correct. And with the understanding, that there's reluctance about, us dribbing and drabbing in budget amendments, and keep trying to fix it up and, bring all these other things in here. But anyway, that's the argument on the budget amendment for sewer. And the other items we can discuss, if you would, Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, sure.
Other items that that can wait more towards the end of the year.
Sounds like the other items probably could all just get knocked out at once at the end of the year. Okay. Although, since we're discussing it, could we get a recap on what those are?
Yeah, I think we're looking at the healthcare budget amendment for, I reckon, the premium increase or the spousal,
Sure.
the spousal non-carve out.
Sure.
And then what was the second? Yeah, the wellness. Those two issues for the health care. Which, Randy, we're running anywhere from what, 150 to 200,000 approximately for those adjustments.
For those two together? Or each?
You'll have 130,000, this is general fund side, I've not done anything on the sewer side. On the general fund side, about 130,000 will put us back at 9% growth is what we probably will expect given some of the added costs that we're seeing under healthcare reform. So 130,000 there. The 100,000 that was pulled out needs to go back in for the working spouses, and then 40,000, or is it 45,000? 40,000 for wellness.
So 270.
270 for healthcare. But I remember there being something else that we talked about back in like July or August, but I can't remember what it was now. It wasn't related to HR, I think it was some other.
Remember, in June, there was the pool, the East Frankfort pool.
Yeah. Oh, that's correct. East Frankfort, right, the demolition.
Yeah.
And this would be,
So 20,000 approximately after the money that Jim was going to kick in. Jim was going to kick in 15.
Right, it's documenting the reappropriation of money from, where's Mr. Hackbart leave already?
Yes.
From one of the funds that he administers.
Yeah, they had $15,000 special project money for the bank, the rock aggregate that was going down the bank.
That was in the parks budget.
Yeah, that was in the parks budget, yeah.
And then Mr. Hackbart was contributing out of a municipal aid or one of the construction budgets, but that would have to be addressed in a budget amendment also.
Yeah.
So in other words, you're not talking about necessarily raising the budget, just shifting.
Right.
Yeah.
Just documenting the auditors,
that's great.
for the auditors, that we change the intended use of that money.
Well, that's great. I mean, to know that that money is indeed in the budget in at least some form that's a relief.
So our thinking was possibly just to hold back, mid-year or maybe first quarter of next year to make these adjustments after we can kind of see how our expenditures and revenues are coming in.
Yeah, that's certainly fine with me. I do. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. Our acting city manager is saving us some money right now in terms of the city manager salary that we're not paying. So just for the purpose of good bookkeeping. I guess by the time we hire a new city manager, we'll have some idea of, as long as we're making budget amendments anyway, I mean, we could actually amend those. We could actually pull that salary that we know we're never going to spend out of the budget. Yeah, as in let's say we hire somebody in December or January, and we know how much, we sign a contract, we know how much they're going to cost us for the rest of that fiscal year.
Yeah.
That's almost certainly going to be within the existing budget or whatnot, minus some. I mean, is there, when we're making budget amendments to raise the budget?
To be honest with you, I've not shifted money, but I can see if we can do that. I'll check with our auditors to make sure we can do that, but I've not shifted money. But, we have money in other departments that are available to cover that, the total amount of money that we're talking about needing for these budget amendments. So I can check that, and I can check about shifting that money. I'm not sure. I've never done that before, but I can make sure if we can do that or not. I just need to confirm that.
That is a possibility.
That might be, very well.
Well, before we close out this discussion, I want to, and I know I hope I'm not beating a dead horse here, but one of the last minute changes that was made to the budget was the carving out of the sustainability coordinator position, the defunding of it. There was an article in I don't know if everybody saw it, so I just wanted to share this article from the State Journal that was published last month about Stonebridge Hospitality, which manages the Capitol Plaza Hotel, has hired a couple of sustainability coordinators just to retrofit some of their facilities. And I'm not going to read the whole article, but in a nutshell, they had saved a lot of money very quickly. And in fact, in some cases, like with all the work they did regarding their water systems, they were expecting a 3-month payback, which is absurdly fast. Mark Stone is the president of Stonebridge Hospitality. He says, "I've seen the savings firsthand, and there's no reason for everybody not to do this." He says, "I've never been an environmentalist, not that I'm against it, but I wouldn't do this unless it saved me money. I'm hoping this will ease the skepticism for other people." But this is just one more example of folks actually hiring a coordinator to do this work and realizing it and doing it for purely fiscal purposes, doing it just for the sake of saving money, and actually seeing a very real and very quantifiable result. And one of the reasons they held a press conference about this was to demonstrate and to make sure that other folks in the area were aware that, yes, when you hire a professional to come in and save you money, you actually do save money. And in light of I bring this up because since we cut, it was about $40,000 out of the budget for this position, we've since improved our bottom line by about I'm estimating by about $450,000 more than we expected at that time. As in, we returned a little more money to the general fund than expected at the end of the year. Obviously, we're saving money on one of the larger salaries in city government right now as we speak. So as we're making budget amendments, I would really like to encourage the possibility of restoring that funding and actually moving forward with this. Because in very blunt terms, and I know I've said this before, but I really think we're just wasting tax dollars every year that we don't invest in energy efficiency on a serious scale. We've been doing an excellent job of stuff that we know how to do, but the folks who realize the big savings and the big drops in their bottom line all do so by bringing in professionals. So I guess I'm putting you on the spot, Bill. Is that something you would think about?
Well, I'll still think about it.
Yeah.
I think the deciding factor for me was when I was looking at the shortages in our public safety side and thinking if we're going to have priorities, we're looking at those short-term needs as well as with the long-term benefit of putting our public safety side and the sustainability coordinator position. They're all important to me, and it actually, I think, something I've actually thought a lot about this weekend even. And with the article from what the Stonebridge folks did, I think that was encouragement to see the private sector getting in. So it is something I'm still thinking about. I would really still like to see the public safety side get bumped back up too, because that was something we worked on for a number of years to build those areas up, and it's certainly no one's fault that we've had a downward economy and had to put a hiring freeze on. But at the same time, it's still something I still am considering. So it's not completely gone. I mean, it's one of those things I would really like to see done in conjunction with making sure we take care of the other needs, specifically in public safety.
Fair enough. I'll keep bringing this up then as we move further into the budget process. I guess I'll just submit that I agree that there probably is a little more that we can do for public safety. And in all fairness, across the board, I know a lot of departments are hurt with the hiring freeze, but I think one of the best things we can do for any of our departments is to simply, the more we improve our own bottom line, the more money we save, the more that does benefit the public safety budget and the parks budget and the finance department budget, et cetera, et cetera. So, unless anybody has anything else to bring up.
I just have one comment,
Sure.
and I haven't had the opportunity to publicly state this yet, but I wanted to thank Chief Wilhoit for coming up and stepping up to the plate. You're really doing your community and your hometown a service, Chief, and all of your years of experience will make this and will make this a smooth transition. And on behalf of me, and I'm sure the rest of the commission would echo this, thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
I mean this in a good way. The transition's been so smooth that I've hardly felt it. You're doing a good job.
Move for adjournment, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Commissioner Head?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mag?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wild?
Yep. I'm going to just say
Nice.
Oh, you guys.